Lightning tore through the sky like angry fingers. Thunder shook the palace of Ianda Kingdom so hard that dust fell from the ceiling. Guards lay on the marble floor, their eyes rolled back, white and empty. Their swords had fallen from their hands. In the great throne room, the Prince of Ianda crawled on his knees. His royal robes dragged behind him, dirty and torn. He was breathing hard, his chest rising and falling like someone who had been running for their life. But he wasn't running anymore. He was begging. "Please," the prince whispered, his voice shaking. "Please, I beg you." On the throne, a figure sat perfectly still. The figure smiled slowly, and when it did, its eyes glowed like hot coals in a fire. The glow lit up the dark room in a way that made everything look wrong. The prince lifted his head, and what he saw made him freeze. Sitting on his throne, wearing his crown, staring down at him with that terrible smile, was himself. His own face. His own body. But it was not him. The air grew thick, heavy, hard to breathe. Magic pressed down on everything. And then, a voice whispered through the darkness, "If only the prince knew who truly sat on his throne. Let us go back. Back to where it all began, months before that terrible night." The kingdom of Ianda was known across the land for one special thing, the River of Blessings. It flowed through the heart of the kingdom, clear and strong. The people believed the river was sacred, a gift from the gods. It watered their crops, filled their wells, and kept their animals healthy. But one dry season, something changed. The river began to shrink. Day by day, the water grew lower. The people watched in fear as the riverbed turned to mud, then to dust. The crops in the fields withered under the hot sun. Animals grew weak and fell where they stood. The elders gathered and said, "The gods are angry with us." The king, a strong man with a kind heart, called his council together. "We must find help," he said. "Send riders to every village, every town. Promise half the royal treasury to anyone who can heal our land." The riders left at dawn, carrying the king's message. The kingdom waited, praying for a miracle. 3 days later, just as hope was fading, a woman appeared at the palace gate. She wore a dark cloak that covered her from head to toe. In her hands, she carried a clay gourd. Blue mist leaked from the top of it, swirling in the air like smoke. The guards stopped her. "Who are you?" they demanded. The woman pulled back her hood. She had a beautiful face, smooth and calm. Her eyes were deep brown, kind and warm. When she spoke, her voice was soft like a gentle breeze. "My name is Oluma," she said. "I am a healer from the eastern forests. My ancestors speak to me through the wind. They told me your kingdom was suffering. They sent me to help." The guards looked at each other, unsure. But the blue mist from her gourd smelled sweet, like rain after a long drought. They brought her to the king. Oluma bowed low. "Your Majesty, I can restore your land. Trust me, and you will see rain before the sun sets tomorrow." The king, desperate and weary, nodded. "Then do what you must." That evening, Oluma went to the palace well. The entire court gathered to watch. She opened her clay gourd and poured the blue liquid into the dry well. The liquid glowed as it fell, turning the stones bright blue. Then, the wind picked up. Clouds gathered overhead, thick and dark. And just as the sun touched the horizon, rain began to fall. The people cheered. They danced in the rain, laughing and crying with joy. Children ran through the streets, splashing in the puddles. The river of blessings began to fill again. The kingdom rejoiced. The king rewarded Oluma with gold, fine clothes, and quarters inside the palace. "You are our savior," he said. "Stay with us. Be our guest." The prince, a young man of 20 years with an honest face, came to thank her personally. He took her hand and bowed. "You have saved my people. I am forever grateful." Oluma smiled and held his hand a moment longer than necessary. She looked into his eyes and whispered, "Your heart beats strong, my prince. It will serve the throne well." The prince felt a chill but said nothing. When he pulled his hand away and turned to leave, he didn't notice something strange. Oluma's shadow stayed behind, lingering on the wall even after her body had moved. Not everyone celebrated Oluma's arrival. Eri was a young servant girl who worked in the palace. She had sharp eyes and a quiet way of noticing things others missed. She swept the floors, served the meals, and listened. And she was listening now. 2 days after the rain came, a farmer collapsed in the market. He had been healthy just that morning. By noon, he was dead. His skin was pale, and when they opened his mouth, blue mist leaked out. Eri heard the whispers. She heard people say it was just bad luck, that he had been sick all along. But she also noticed something else. The farmer had been standing near the well when Oluma performed her miracle. He had drunk from the water first. Eri tried to tell her friend Boma, another servant. "Something is wrong," Eri said. "Every time Oluma does something, someone else suffers." Boma laughed. "You're just jealous, Eri. She's powerful and beautiful. You're jealous that the prince thanked her and not you." Eri shook her head. "No. I'm telling you, something is wrong." That night, Boma went to bed smiling, dreaming of the feast the king had planned for the next day. But when Eri came to wake her the next morning, Boma wouldn't open her eyes. Boma was still breathing, but barely. Her chest rose and fell slowly, too slowly. Her skin was cold, and when Eri shook her, she didn't respond. The palace healer came and shook his head. "She is somewhere between life and death. I cannot reach her." Eri's heart broke. She held Boma's hand and whispered, "I'll find out what's happening. I promise." That night, Eri was assigned to clean the great throne room. She worked quietly, sweeping the marble floors. The room was empty and silent. But as she swept near the throne, she heard something. A soft sound, like whispers. She stopped and listened. The whispers were coming from below the throne. She knelt down and looked at the base of the throne, where it met the floor. There, carved into the marble, were strange markings. Lines and symbols she had never seen before. They glowed faintly, like dying embers. Eri reached out and touched one of the markings. The moment her finger made contact, the markings began to move. They shifted and twisted like living veins, spreading across the marble like cracks in ice. Eri gasped and pulled her hand back. Her heart pounded. She looked around, but no one else was there. The markings slowly stopped moving and faded back to a dull glow. Eri knew one thing for certain now. Something evil was at work in this palace. The next morning, Eri went to the captain of the palace guard. His name was Obi, and he was known to be a fair man. "Sir," Eri said, her voice trembling, "there are strange markings beneath the throne. They moved when I touched them. I think something dark is happening." Obi frowned. "Show me." But before they could reach the throne room, Oluma appeared in the hallway. She smiled sweetly. "Is there a problem?" Obi explained what Eri had said. Oluma's face turned sad. "Oh, my dear child," she said gently, placing a hand over her heart. "I understand. You are frightened by things you do not understand. Those markings are ancient blessings, placed there by the first kings to protect the throne. They are holy." Obi looked at Eri. "Did you disturb holy ground?" "No, Oluma interrupted softly. Perhaps the girl should not enter the throne room anymore. Holy places can confuse simple minds. Obi nodded. "Eri, stay away from the throne room." Eri's face burned with shame and anger, but she said nothing. As she turned to leave, Oluma leaned close and whispered in her ear, her voice like silk over a blade. "Some thrones bite, little girl." Eri's blood ran cold. A grand feast was held in Oluma's honor. The entire court attended. Tables were piled high with roasted meat, fresh bread, fruits, and sweets. Musicians played, and dancers twirled. Oluma sat at the head table beside the king and the prince. She wore a beautiful gown that shimmered like water in moonlight. Everyone admired her. When the wine was served, Oluma stood and raised her cup. "To the health and strength of this great kingdom," she said. "May we all drink deeply of the river's blessing." The wine smelled sweet, like river lilies. Everyone drank eagerly. Everyone except Eri. Eri stood against the wall, serving food to the guests. When the wine came to her, she pretended to drink but kept her lips closed. As she lowered her cup, she glanced at the surface of the wine. And in that reflection, she saw something that made her stomach turn. In the reflection, Oluma's face was not beautiful. It was hollow. Her eyes were empty pits. And beneath her smooth skin, Eri saw scales, shimmering and wet. Eri blinked, and the reflection returned to normal. But she knew what she had seen. That night, as the guests laughed and danced, Eri slipped away. She had to find someone who could help her. Someone who would believe her. Eri went to the oldest part of the palace, where the servants rarely went. There, in a small dusty room, lived the palace bard. His name was Udoka. Once, he had been the king's favorite storyteller, singing tales of heroes and gods. But age had taken his mind, and now he sat alone, muttering to himself. Eri knocked softly. "Udoka. It's Eri. I need your help." The old man looked up. His eyes were cloudy, but they focused on her. "Eri. Yes, yes. The girl who listens. Come in, child." She sat beside him and told him everything. The markings, the blue mist, Boma's sickness, the reflection in the wine. Udoka's face grew pale. He began to rock back and forth, humming a strange tune. Then, he sang softly, his voice cracked but clear. "When the River Queen drinks the heart of men, the throne will eat its heir again. She wears the skin, she drinks the soul, and none shall see the truth she stole." Eri's breath caught. "The River Queen? Who is that?" Udoka grabbed her hand, his grip surprisingly strong. "The mark beneath the throne means she's already feeding. She takes life to grow strong. Soon, she will take the prince. How do I stop her?" "Truth," Udoka whispered. "Only truth can burn her lies." Eri knew she had to warn the prince. She found him the next morning in the garden, walking alone. "Your Highness," she called, running toward him. "Please, I must speak with you." The prince turned and smiled kindly. "Eri, isn't it? What troubles you?" Eri's words came out in a rush. "It's Oluma, my prince. She's not what she seems. She's draining the life from people. My friend Boma is dying because of her. There are markings under the throne, and I saw her true face in the wine." The prince held up a hand, still smiling but confused. "Eri, slow down. You're not making sense. Please, you have to believe me. She's dangerous." The prince's smile faded into something sadder. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Oluma saved us all, Eri. She brought the rain. She healed the sick. I understand that change can be frightening, but don't let jealousy speak for you." "I'm not jealous," Eri cried. "I'm trying to protect you." But the prince had already turned away. "Get some rest, Eri. You seem unwell." As he walked back toward the palace, Eri saw something that made her heart stop. In the glass window behind the prince, Oluma's reflection stood perfectly still. But the prince was moving. The reflection didn't match. Eri realized then that Oluma was watching. Always watching. That night, screams echoed through the palace. Eri woke to the smell of smoke and the sound of people running. She rushed into the hallway and saw flames, but they were not red or orange. They were blue. The fire danced along the walls, cold and strange. It didn't burn the wood or stone. It only burned people. Servants and guards collapsed, clutching their chests, gasping for air. Eri ran toward the throne room, where the screams were loudest. There, Oluma stood in the center of the chaos, calm as a summer lake. "Do not fear," she said in her soft voice. "I will heal you." One by one, she placed her hand on the chests of the injured. Each time she did, the blue fire around them dimmed and went out. The people stopped screaming. Their faces relaxed. But Eri saw the truth. Each person Oluma healed didn't wake up. They lay still, their eyes open but seeing nothing. Their chests barely moved. They looked like Boma. Oluma's eyes swept the room and landed on Eri. She smiled, slow and knowing. Eri turned and ran, her heart pounding like a drum. She didn't stop until she reached her small room and locked the door. She knew now, Oluma wasn't healing anyone. She was feeding. The next day, Eri couldn't stop thinking about the throne. About the markings. About what Udoka had said, the mark beneath the throne means she's already feeding. That night, when the palace was quiet, Eri snuck back to the throne room. She brought a candle and moved carefully, watching the shadows. She knelt beside the throne and studied the glowing markings. This time, she noticed something new, a small gap between the stones, like a crack. She pressed her fingers into the gap and pulled. The stone shifted. Beneath it was a narrow staircase, leading down into darkness. Aries' hands shook, but she forced herself to descend. The air below was cold and damp. The walls were slick with moisture. At the bottom of the stairs, she found a hidden chamber. Inside were dozens of glass jars, each filled with cloudy water. And floating in each jar was something that made Aries' stomach twist, a human heart. Each jar had a name carved into the glass. She read them slowly: Boma, Chidi, Ades. All people who had recently died or fallen into the strange sleep. And then, at the end of the row, Aries saw one more jar. It was empty, waiting. The name carved into it was Aries. Aries stumbled backward, her breath coming in gasps. She had to tell someone. She had to stop this. But who would believe her? The next morning, the royal astrologer made an announcement. A blood moon rises in 3 nights, he said. It is a rare and powerful event. We must perform a cleansing ritual to honor the gods. Oluma stepped forward, her voice calm and sure. I will prepare the ritual. The prince must lead it. It will protect the kingdom and strengthen the throne. The king nodded. Then it shall be done. Aries' heart sank. She tried to approach the prince again, but guards stopped her. The prince is busy preparing for the ritual, they said. That evening, Aries hid in the hallway outside Oluma's chambers. She pressed her ear to the door and listened. Oluma's voice drifted through, soft but cold. By dawn, he will breathe for me. His body will serve, and his soul will feed the throne. The River Queen will walk among men once more. Aries' blood turned to ice. She had 3 days. 3 days to stop Oluma before the prince was lost forever. But how could a servant girl stop a spirit queen? Aries knew there was only one person who might help her now. Mama Nyaki, the old priestess who lived deep in the forest. Aries left the palace before dawn, while the guards were still half asleep. She ran through the empty streets and into the forest beyond the kingdom's edge. The trees grew thick and dark. Strange sounds echoed around her, birds she didn't recognize, branches snapping in the distance. But she didn't stop. Finally, she reached a clearing. In the center stood a small hut made of clay and thatch. Smoke rose from a fire outside. An old woman sat beside the fire, stirring a pot. Her hair was white as cloud, her face lined with age. But her eyes were sharp and bright. Mama Nyaki, Aries said, breathless. Please, I need your help. The old woman looked up and smiled. I've been waiting for you, child. Sit. Aries sat and told her everything. Mama Nyaki listened without interrupting, nodding slowly. When Aries finished, Mama Nyaki sighed. The one you call Oluma is no healer. She is the River Queen, a spirit of the drowned. Long ago, she ruled a kingdom beneath the water. But she grew greedy. She wanted to walk on land, to rule among men. So she learned to steal bodies, wearing them like clothes. How do I stop her? Aries asked desperately. Mama Nyaki stood and went inside her hut. She returned with a small clay jar. Inside were tiny red fireflies, glowing like embers. This is truth fire, Mama Nyaki said. Throw it on the throne, and all lies will burn away. Her true form will be revealed. Will that kill her? No. But it will weaken her long enough for the prince to strike. He must destroy the throne itself. Only then will her power break. Mama Nyaki's face grew stern. But listen well, child. If she sees you coming, she will wear your face next. Be swift. Be brave. Aries took the jar, her hands trembling. Thank you, Mama. As she turned to leave, the old woman called out, One more thing. The throne feeds on fear. Do not let her see yours. Aries returned to the palace just before sunset. Her heart pounded as she hid the jar of truth fire in her room. But when she looked in the mirror to wash her face, she froze. Her reflection smiled at her. Aries wasn't smiling. The reflection tilted its head, its eyes empty and cold. Then it whispered, I see you, little servant. Eri stumbled backward, her heart racing. When she looked again, the reflection was normal. But she knew, Oluma was watching her. The Spirit Queen knew she was a threat. Eri had no time to waste. The blood moon was only 2 nights away. She had to act before the ritual, or the prince would be lost forever. That night, she barely slept. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound made her jump. But she held the jar of truth fire close, whispering a prayer to the gods. Please, she whispered, give me strength. Let me save him. Outside her window, the moon began to turn red. The night of the blood moon arrived. The palace was decorated with red cloth and candles. The people gathered in the great hall, dressed in ceremonial robes. The air was thick with incense and expectation. The prince stood at the center, looking pale but determined. He wore white robes and a crown of silver leaves. Oluma stood beside him, dressed in flowing blue, her face serene. She held a second crown in her hands. It was made of dark metal and glowed faintly with blue mist. This crown has been blessed by the river itself, Oluma said, her voice carrying through the hall. When the prince wears it, he will be united with the river spirit. The kingdom will be protected forever. The king nodded, his eyes glassy and distant. He had been drinking Oluma's tea for days. He no longer questioned her. Oluma placed the crown on the prince's head. The moment it touched him, the prince gasped. His body went rigid. His eyes rolled back. The crowd murmured in confusion. Do not fear, Oluma said calmly. The spirit is entering him. It is a sacred process. But Eri, hidden among the crowd, saw the truth. The prince's face was changing. His features shifted slightly, becoming sharper, colder. And when he opened his eyes again, they glowed faintly blue. Then the king stood. His movements were stiff, unnatural. When he spoke, his voice was not his own. It was Oluma's. The throne is pleased, the king said in Oluma's voice. Eri's heart pounded. It was happening. Oluma was taking control. She had to act now. Eri pushed through the crowd, clutching the jar of truth fire. Her hands shook, but she didn't stop. Wait, she shouted. Stop the ritual. The crowd turned to stare. Guards moved toward her, but Eri was faster. She ran toward the throne and hurled the jar with all her strength. The jar shattered against the base of the throne. Red fireflies burst out, swarming over the marble like living flames. The markings beneath the throne began to glow bright red. And then, the throne itself started to crack. From within the cracks, faces appeared, human faces, twisted in agony, their mouths open in silent screams. They were the souls Oluma had taken, trapped inside the throne. The crowd gasped in horror. Some screamed. Others fell to their knees. Oluma's face twisted with fury. She let out a scream that shook the walls. Her body began to split and shift, her human form tearing like fabric. Beneath it, something else emerged. Scales. Wet, glistening scales. Her arms stretched and twisted, becoming long and serpent-like. Her beautiful face cracked open, revealing hollow eyes and rows of needle-sharp teeth. The crowd scattered, running for the doors. The prince collapsed, gasping for air. The blue glow left his eyes, and he looked around in confusion. Oluma, or the thing that had been Oluma, rose to her full height, towering over them all. Her voice was no longer soft. It was a hiss, deep and ancient. I am the throne, boy. I am the river. I am the queen of the drowned. And you will all serve me. Eri grabbed the prince's arm and pulled him to his feet. We have to go, she shouted. The prince, dazed and weak, stumbled after her. Together, they ran toward the back of the throne room, where Eri had found the hidden chamber. Behind them, Oluma's serpent form slithered forward, her body moving like water. You cannot hide from me, little servant, she hissed. I see everything. I am everywhere. Eri and the prince reached the hidden staircase and descended into the darkness. The walls were damp and cold, and the air smelled of earth and rot. Where are we going? The prince gasped. Away from her, Eri said. We need time to think. But as they reached the bottom of the stairs, they heard voices. Soft, desperate voices, calling out from the walls themselves. "Help us! Free us! Please, we are trapped!" The prince stopped, his face pale. "What is this place?" Eri swallowed hard. "This is where she keeps the souls she's taken." And then, one voice rose above the others. It was soft and familiar, filled with sorrow. "My son." The prince's eyes widened. "Mother," he whispered. The voice came again, clearer this time. "Free me, free us all." The prince sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "My mother died 5 years ago. She's been here all this time." Eri knelt beside him. "Oluma's first victim. She used your mother's soul to fuel her power." The prince looked at Eri, his face filled with anguish and rage. "How do we stop her?" The queen's voice echoed through the chamber, soft but urgent. "The Heartstone. Find the Heartstone." "What is the Heartstone?" Eri asked. "It is the source of her power," the queen's spirit said. "It lies where the river died, buried beneath the old riverbed. Only the Heartstone can destroy her. But you must hurry. She is coming." The prince stood, wiping his tears. His face was hard now, determined. "Then we go to the riverbed." They climbed back up the stairs and slipped out of the palace through a side gate. The night was dark, the blood moon casting everything in a red glow. They ran through the streets, past frightened villagers who had fled the palace. Dogs barked. Children cried. The kingdom was in chaos. Finally, they reached the dried riverbed. It stretched before them like a scar in the earth, cracked and lifeless. "Where do we dig?" the prince asked. Eri closed her eyes and listened. She could hear the whispers of the drowned, guiding her. "There," she said, pointing to a spot in the center. They knelt and began digging with their bare hands. The earth was hard and dry, but they didn't stop. And then, Eri's fingers touched something smooth and cold. She pulled it free. It was a stone, no bigger than a fist, glowing faintly with a pale blue light. It pulsed like a heartbeat. "The Heartstone," the prince whispered. But as they stood, a cold voice echoed across the riverbed. "Did you really think you could hide from me?" Oluma stood at the edge of the riverbed, her serpent form coiled and massive. Her eyes glowed in the moonlight, and her mouth twisted into a cruel smile. "That stone belongs to me," she hissed. "Give it back, and I will make your deaths quick." The prince stepped in front of Eri, holding the Heartstone tightly. "You've taken enough from this kingdom. From my family. It ends tonight." Oluma laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You are a child playing with fire, boy. I have lived for 1,000 years. I have worn 100 skins. You think you can defeat me?" "I don't need to defeat you," the prince said. "I just need to break your power." He raised the Heartstone high. It glowed brighter, and Oluma hissed, recoiling. "No!" she shrieked. "That stone is mine. I forged it from the souls of the drowned. Without it, I am nothing." "Exactly," the prince said. He turned to Eri. "When I break this, she'll try to take us both. Run." "No," Eri said firmly. "We finish this together." The prince nodded. Together, they turned back toward the palace, the Heartstone glowing in the prince's hand. Oluma followed, her body slithering through the dust, her rage shaking the ground. The final battle was about to begin. They reached the palace just as dawn began to break. The sky was turning pale, the red moon fading. The throne room was empty, the doors hanging open. The throne itself sat in the center, cracked and glowing with a sickly blue light. "We have to destroy the throne," Eri said. "That's where her power is anchored." The prince nodded. He raised the Heartstone and prepared to smash it against the throne. But before he could, Oluma's voice filled the room, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. "You think destroying the throne will save you," she hissed. "I am the throne. The throne is me. We are one." The floor began to shake. The walls cracked. And then, Oluma's massive form burst through the doorway, her body filling the room. She lunged toward the prince, her jaws open wide. But Eri was faster. She grabbed a piece of broken stone from the floor and hurled it at Oluma's face. The stone struck true, and Oluma screamed, recoiling. It gave the prince just enough time. He slammed the Heartstone against the throne with all his strength. The stone shattered. The throne cracked open. And from within it, a blinding light erupted. The light was so bright that Eri had to cover her eyes. She heard Oluma screaming, a sound so terrible it made her ears ring. When the light faded, Eri lowered her hands and looked. The throne was split in half, its dark marble crumbling to dust. And from within it, souls began to rise, dozens of them, glowing like fireflies, finally freed. Oluma's serpent form was shrinking, withering. Her scales turned gray and brittle. Her eyes dimmed. "No," she hissed weakly. "No. This is not how it ends. I am eternal." But the souls she had taken surrounded her now, their voices rising in a chorus of anger and sorrow. They reached out, their hands of light pulling at her, dragging her down. "You took from us," they whispered. "Now we take from you." Oluma's body began to dissolve, piece by piece, until nothing remained but a faint blue mist. And then, even the mist was gone. The throne room fell silent. Eri and the prince stood together, breathing hard, their bodies trembling. It was over. But as Eri turned to leave, the remains of the throne began to glow again. This time, the light was different, darker, hungrier. The throne itself was still alive. "It's not finished," Eri whispered. "The throne, it's still feeding." The cracks in the throne began to widen, and a deep, hollow sound echoed from within it. The throne had been built on dark magic, and even with Oluma gone, it still hungered. The prince stepped forward, his face pale. "Then we destroy it completely." He picked up a piece of the shattered Heartstone and raised it high. But before he could strike, the throne pulsed, and a force like a strong wind pulled at him. He stumbled, his feet sliding across the floor toward the throne. "No!" Eri shouted. She grabbed his arm, trying to pull him back, but the force was too strong. The prince looked at her, his eyes filled with understanding. "Eri, you have to let me go." "What?" "No. The throne wants a soul to close itself. If I don't give it one, it will consume the entire palace. Everyone will die." Eri's eyes filled with tears. "There has to be another way." The prince smiled sadly. "You saved me once. You saved the kingdom. Let me save it now." Before Eri could stop him, he let go of her hand and stepped toward the throne. The moment he touched it, the light exploded outward, and the throne began to collapse inward, pulling him with it. "No!" Eri screamed. She ran forward and pushed him aside with all her strength. And then, the throne's light swallowed her instead. The prince fell to the ground, gasping. He looked up just in time to see Eri standing in the center of the collapsing throne, surrounded by light. She looked at him and smiled. It was a peaceful smile, full of quiet courage. "At last," she whispered, "the throne knows its true master." The light grew brighter, and the souls that had been trapped inside the throne began to rise, freed at last. They swirled around Eri like a gentle wind, their voices singing a soft, mournful song. The throne crumbled completely, turning to dust. The walls stopped shaking. The palace fell silent. And Eri was gone. The prince knelt where she had stood, his hands pressed against the cold marble floor. Tears streamed down his face. "Eri!" he whispered. "Why?" But deep down, he knew why. She had given everything to save him, to save the kingdom. She had faced the darkness without fear, and in doing so, she had become the light. The sun rose over the palace, casting warm golden rays through the broken windows. The nightmare was over. But the price had been high. Dawn broke over the kingdom of Ianda. The palace stood silent, scarred but still standing. The people began to return, cautiously at first, then with growing relief. The king woke from his trance, confused but unharmed. The guards who had fallen rose slowly, their eyes clear once more. And the souls that had been trapped for so long were finally at rest. The prince stood in the throne room, staring at the spot where the throne had been. Now only a smooth patch of marble remained, clean and unmarked. He held a small cloth in his hands, Eri's headscarf, the only thing left behind. The people asked what had happened. The prince told them everything, about Oluma, the River Queen, the cursed throne, and the brave servant girl who had saved them all. The kingdom mourned Eri. They built a statue in her honor at the center of the market square, a young girl with kind eyes, holding a candle. But sometimes, late at night, the prince would return to the throne room. And he would hear it, a soft voice, gentle as wind through leaves. If only the prince knew who truly sat on his throne. He would close his eyes and whisper back, "I know now, Eri. I know." The voice would fade, leaving only peace behind. The kingdom rebuilt. A new throne was carved, simple and pure, with no markings, no secrets. The prince ruled with wisdom and humility, always remembering the girl who had seen the truth when no one else would. And every year, on the anniversary of that terrible night, the people gathered at Eri's statue. They lit candles and told her story to their children, teaching them to be brave, to speak truth, and to never let evil hide behind a beautiful face. For power is sacred only when earned. Trust not every blessing, for even the clearest water may hide a serpent. And remember, the smallest voice can defeat the greatest darkness, if only it speaks with courage. The kingdom of Ianda learned that lesson well. And they never forgot the servant girl who saved them all.